Your Art is bringing technology-driven arts to the Low Country schools. Today, I talk one-on-one with the executive director of this organization, Greg Colleton, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Greg Colleton, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hi, how are you doing? Good morning.
Oh, I'm doing great here. I know that you are an art lover, obviously, and you're also a consultant along with being a nonprofit warrior. In fact, you are the executive director of Your Art, which enhances everyday classroom curriculum with media arts program designed to spark students' curiosity and teach real, obviously, world skills here. Let me ask you first, Greg, what does art mean to you these days?
Well, that's a good question. Art is is definitely subjective. It's your everyday mindset of using your right brain and whatever sort of enlightens you for that moment, and it can be your passion. It's like I said, it's subjective to who you are. For me, it's maybe looking at the sky differently. You could bring up different concepts, and yeah, that's basically art for me. Yeah.
How has art? How are you being enlightened in the moment with art?
Well, currently for me, like in the past, I studied art in college. However, being enlightened is basically me connecting with students, helping them express themselves artistically. And that's me currently. I would like to get back into creating art, but for the moment, it is basically me promoting our mission to cultivate students creatively.
So, how are you expressing yourself through art?
I like I said, probably with our mission right now, connecting with students from second grade to middle schoolers, showing them ways how they can bring art in their everyday life and taking it on to a possible career. That's how I'm expressing myself right now.
And as a matter of fact, Greg, I know that Your Art obviously brings technology-driven arts to the schools. So, what type of arts were in those schools prior to Your Art?
One thing, well, I would say the issue right now with most of the schools, we work with Title I schools, and the one issue is arts is there's probably like the last funded curriculum within these schools. So prior to us, they do have art courses, but we like to bring in we like to mesh in the STEAM aspects. So most of the schools have an art curriculum, but we like to mesh in the media arts like graphic design, photography, film, fashion design within those classrooms. Within those classrooms and curriculums that's already established within the schools.
And what are those STEM or STEAM concepts that you all are actually incorporating into the curriculum right now, Greg?
Yeah, so right now we're currently in 4 schools. So we are partnered with a school in North Charleston called Hunley Park Elementary, and we have a fashion course. We are in Johns Island Angel Oak Elementary, and that's a science class, but we're incorporating digital photography. They're learning about the ecosystem, so we're actually taking them outside or surrounding environments around the schools and taking pictures. So they're learning science as well as the creative aspect of digital photography.
So what is that critical, well, obviously that aspect of digital photography right now that we don't know about?
Excuse me?
Yeah, what is that critical aspect of digital film?
It's basically we all have phones, cameras,
Yes.
in our phones, but we like to let them have like hold a actual digital camera. Some of them seeing that for the first time, other than just having something that's already on your in your pocket. So they learn how to tech. I'm not a photographer, but we bring in a photographer to teach like the elements of design and like zoom in, various dimensions within the technicalities of using a camera.
So, Greg, let me ask you, how is your art meeting the needs of the classroom with this formula?
So we are definitely taking what they already are learning, or they already this like the school district standard curriculum,
Sure.
but we're actually enhancing that learning experience to bring out like a more creative direction to what they're already learning. So, say with a math class, we would bring in like coding, and I don't know anything about coding,
Right.
but they're learning math as well as coding to be able to build a website, or just know that new language, which everyone should start learning. Actually,
Yeah, and I need actually a website for Quintin's close-up, so we'll get there eventually.
maybe our students can build you one.
There you go. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. That'll enhance their resume. And I know that your art obviously enhances everyday classroom curriculum, as you just mentioned, with the media arts programs designed to spark the students' curiosity and teach them real world skills. So, what are the students' curiosity about media arts?
They love when we first introduced them. They're like they think it's more like production, like video production, which we do teach that aspect. But we like to tell them it's everything that's right in front of their computer screen. Um, they could they can utilize these laptops and their Chromebooks that they all have. They all have Chromebooks. That's probably like the only plus from the plus side of the pandemic.
Hmm.
They all have access to a laptop, so they can utilize those tools to create, express themselves creatively through graphic design, and be able to manipulate um, photos through like Photoshop and Illustrator and these other design platforms based on their laptops.
So, what has been the downside to to obviously media art programs because of the pandemic?
So the major downside was not being able to teach in person. We did um, create a Zoom sort of platform curriculum, but it wasn't the same being with the students hands on with the cameras and having them um, have seeing a graphic designer from their community come into their classrooms and actually show them what they're doing instead of just being behind a screen.
So, Greg, when you bring in those photographers and other influencers into the
Mm.
community, into the classroom, what are these kids are taking away from that?
They're taking they basically see that this is something I can pursue in a career. Um, a lot of people think, oh, if you go to school for art, you're just going to be a starving artist. But you can actually take these things on, and you can become an architect, a graphic designer, a photographer, a fashion designer. Um, so that we like to give them like these real world skills that they can utilize to a possible pursue a possible career in.
And which one of those real life skills with this program have you taken on personally and professionally and adopted for your life and your career?
That's a good question. Um, I've definitely been learning, like I said, the new language of codes. I come from a traditional studio arts background, like painting and drawing and sculpture,
Right.
and now I would not call myself a graphic designer. by any means, but I'm actually learning how to learn this digital language. Um, and as far as design aspects, um, I especially with social media and taking that into another level of marketing, it's been helping me, especially with um, promoting your art on a design aspect.
Yes, sir. And let me ask you this, Greg. You talked about obviously earlier that you all serve, those four Title I schools. So in total, how many students do you actually serve?
So pre-pandemic, it was around 500 kids every year. But now those numbers are growing, so we're around 300. And we're gaining more schools because we're both in Charleston and Berkeley County. So now that the schools are comfortable with bringing people back into the classroom, the numbers definitely growing back to our 500 mark that we like to achieve every year.
So you talk about that, Mark, and you talk about obviously, the growing numbers of students that you're all serving. How do you match that with the growth that's coming to Charleston right now?
It's definitely we try to target the schools that are, because there's so many new schools. We did like a STEM, we did a STEM STEMapalooza with the National Black Engineers Society, and we were approached by so many different parents and leaders, and they're like, "Hey, we have a school out here in Berkeley County," and I was like, "I didn't even know that." So it's just every day we're just learning the new schools and the new possibilities, even homeschool aspects. A lot of people are um, wanting us to sort of create a curriculum for a homeschool basis. Yeah.
So what is your strategic plan for that, Greg?
Right now, it's basically connecting with like the principals, connecting with the admins there, and going to these schools. Like within, I think March 28th, I'm going out to a school in Berkeley County, and they're going to have like a career day. So targeting those schools and physically going there and showing them what we do. Because like I said, social media is there, but I like to approach the school personally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, one-on-one. Greg, you talk
Yeah.
about obviously the educators and the parents and obviously the teachers. When your art began, was there some sort of resistance to that, or was it embraced?
Well, I started 3 years ago, and but it's been around. It's been an organization for 14 years actually, and I didn't hear of any resistance. I think it was already always embraced. I would say from me personally, from my experience, I would say the only resistance was maybe funding, and and the and then I have to like really tell them like, no, we fund the project. They're like, okay, so how much is this is going to cost us? So I like to tell them first up. I put in bold, free for you, not
Yes.
for us.
Right.
But yeah, that's probably like the first thing. They're like, okay, who's going to fund this? But then once they know that we fully fund the projects, then we pay all of our instructors, even fund our field trips, and it's usually a green light.
Yes, sir. And how many
And,
instructors do you have?
and also time wise, because we really get like a small amount of time within the classroom.
Okay.
We usually get like an hour to work with the kids, hour and so and, maybe hour 30. So basically finding that a time slot for us to get in where we fit in.
And Greg, how many instructors do you have currently?
So we have currently 5 instructors, and that number is always growing. We're always looking for instructors. I'm always scouting out people. If I find out you're a photographer, I'm like, do you want to teach? I'll pay you. So yeah, total 5, and now, like I said, that number is growing.
And where do you want that to grow as far as your goal?
My goal is to at least have 10 solid instructors.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. And obviously, the program that you all have, Your Art, is free for the schools. But how much does this cost you all annually?
We have an annual budget around 120K a year, and like I said, we're a small, very small organization.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, around that was our annual budget.
So, Greg, let me ask you, what public or private partnerships do you want to have to continue the funding of Your Art?
I would love to have more corporate sponsorships. That's our goal, to have like target all these amazing institutions here, to have that secure funding. I know the money's out there.
Yes.
And we have amazing donors, and like that number is growing. But yeah, I would love to see to lock down a few corporate sponsors.
How many do you need right now?
All of them. We definitely need some.
Yes, sir. And how does Your Art keep this initiative going, 5, 10 years from now?
Like I said, with the growth of maintaining these grants and fundings, because we operate solely on grants and donorship. I would love to see it expand, because we don't have brick and mortar. We work literally within schools, but it would be great to maybe have a center that the students can come to us. Fortunately, we have an amazing co-working space at the cigar factory. It's called the Ripple Fund.
Oh, yes.
And it's like a collective of nonprofits. So we hopped on about, it hasn't been a year yet, but it feels like it's coming near to it. And it's a great community of other nonprofits, and we partner with other organizations. So, and we've actually hosted some workshops there. But I would like to, if 10 years from now we're blessed enough to have a center, and the equipment where kids can come and learn after school programs. So yeah.
Shout out to Dean Stevens and the folks at the Ripple, by the way.
Yeah, Dean's awesome.
He is. Yes, indeed. And I know that your project obviously encourage learning through discovery and discipline and improvisation and technique, and provide a fertile ground for creative decoding, as you mentioned, photography, filmmaking, design. Which program is the most requested by these schools?
The most, what was it? You said suppressed?
No. What's the most popular program at that school?
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. But I would say our definitely our photography program, and our fashion program is really awesome. We have an amazing instructor, Jonathan Ramirez.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he's great, and the kids really love his approach to fashion. We take like everyday items, like recyclables, and it's amazing what they can do with it and turn them into these amazing pieces of artwork.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And what's that artwork that has been the most impressive by your art students?
I would definitely say, going back to our fashion.
Yeah.
We do this annual fundraiser event at Gwynn's at Mount Pleasant, and they're great supporters. And we bring in like these mannequins, and it's just like amazing to see what these kids create on these forms. And that was one of the first projects I physically, when we were able to go into the classrooms, work with the students to make. So I was very impressed what they could do with like pool noodles and paper towel rolls and all the feathers, all kinds of things,
Oh,
or coffee filters.
right. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I know that your art too is committed to closing the opportunity and achievement gaps at Charleston Public Schools through transformative media arts and technology programs, of course. So, what are those other opportunity gaps right now that you're all seeing?
Well, we're just definitely trying to bridge that digital divide that's there because we work within these underrepresented schools, and some of the kids, some of the kids may not even have internet in their homes. Um, so that's one thing that we're trying to figure out ways to make sure everyone has accessibility to these things that um, other kids are afforded and other schools have. Um, some schools have like a whole stock of iPads, and some schools don't. So, like one thing we would like to do is build up our um, our supplies that we can offer. Like we have cameras, but we would like to put like an iPad in every kid's hand so they can utilize these things that we definitely need to survive these days. So there's definitely that digital divide that we're trying to bridge.
Yes, sir. And what are those other hidden, digital divides that you're seeing in the schools and out in the community?
Just access to internet, and I would say, um, like I said, fortunately, the only plus side that came out of the pandemic, all the kids have Chromebooks, so they all have. But hopefully, well, unfortunately, some, like I said, they don't have proper internet access home, so I know that could be difficult.
Yes, sir. And I know that obviously your art wants to close the opportunity and achievement gaps, but what about the culture gap?
Yeah, and it's definitely there. I My goal is to, especially me being an African American male within the arts, I like to bring in artists of color to show them like we have black graphic designers or of color and photographers and fashion designers, and this you can take that approach in a career, and just enjoy it and be successful in it.
Yes, indeed. So, Greg, let me ask you this, and this is probably an educational question, but how many high arts and low socioeconomic students in Charleston are more likely to graduate than low arts and low socioeconomic students in 2022?
Yeah, I know. What when we in the past when we would do our end of the year reports, we have seen that bringing in programs like Your Art and the Arts have helped them increase their scores with standardized tests. So it has been proven that with the arts and our mission, it has helped improve like test scores and and um, and graduating into the higher education.
Wow. And how many low income students in Charleston actually lack access to these opportunities?
It's quite a few. I don't know the exact number, but especially within the rural areas, like I grew up in McClellanville.
Yes.
I'm a country boy, um, and we like to target schools there, and target especially in the Johns Island, Wadmalaw areas. We work with a ton of schools there as well. The few schools that they have, and then those areas that we all know, like the targeted areas that have the lower incomes, schools that not many organizations probably would even know needed the help. So yeah. So,
What are those other areas and communities here in the area, Greg, that are really overlooked with arts education?
yeah, like I said, definitely the rural areas. We actually got approached by Berkeley County to teach a class in cross. And we haven't really arranged that yet because it's like the travel and basically trying to connect that. But it's usually those rural areas that are definitely overlooked. Um, and I would say um, those smaller populated schools, um, like Mary Ford Elementary, um, that are sometimes overlooked. But it's our mission to seek out those schools, and I love getting emails. I love going to like these fairs and getting emails saying, "I saw you at this event. Can you please come to our school?" So yeah,
And I
it's,
know,
it's hitting the ground and running and going and just being out there and being visible.
yes,
Um,
sir.
yeah, helps.
And I know, obviously, with coding, photography, filmmaking, and designs,
Mm.
students are actually encouraged to engage in their learning through a creative and project-based 10-week curricula, which also reinforces a South Carolina core curriculum standard in science, social studies, and or math. So, what are
Mm.
the key concepts that you all are addressing with these courses?
When it the key concepts is basically we like to like for an example with our design courses, we like to approach them with the everyday elements of design, like line and space and color, and then we go into um, aspects of perspective and taking that to geometry aspect, and then with um, photography, but learning about science,
Mm.
different viewpoints of how you can like vantage points, definitions within space, and taking your environment and sort of composing something, composing a picture or a painting within your everyday surrounding. So yeah,
So, Greg, let me ask you, how do those administrators or your instructors unpack those standards?
we do it on because we like I said, it's kind of difficult to sort of teach all these things in an hour. So we do like a weekly session. Like
Yes,
we
sir.
focus on one thing per week, um, without being too intense with all these like information overload. So we try to break it down as um, basically um, per week on one sort of like design element of the yeah.
And I know that you also are planning to expand your participation in professional development workshops. So, and I know that you want to exponentially raise that number of students for the programs every year. How much did you raise that number by in 2021, for instance?
So 2021, and that's what right during the start of the pandemic.
Oh, yes.
Um, we have definitely, I would say, increased our enrollment. I would say about it's more like 30%. I would say we were probably like like pre-COVID, we were probably like 8 schools. So now like I said, we're currently trying to get at least back to like 5, 6 schools per month. So
And I know that teaching just free professional development workshops a year will double the number of students you reach annually, and you plan obviously to teach more. What was your
yeah,
goal? Yeah, what was your goal for that when you became the executive director of your art?
my goal was to at least, like I said, have at least 10 solid instructors, where we could be in a school every day, um, and having multiple. Because at one point we just had currently we have one fashion designer, Jonathan,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm stretching him so thin. So my goal was to literally find two fashion designers, to basically double the numbers of each curriculum or program that we offer. And one
And
thing is, I'm finding difficulties is finding those instructors, like especially graphic designers and coding, um, which is very popular. But we only had like one person to teach coding, so yeah, my
so,
goal is to increase those numbers.
Greg, going forth in the future, what other programs do you want to offer to the students in those classrooms?
I actually had a great conversation with a Clemson graduate architecture graduate student. Um, they are volunteering with local nonprofits here, and I would like to bring back our architecture program. We had an amazing landscape architecture curriculum, and I have yet to explore that, as well as a solid filmmaking and videography program. I would like to revive that program as well.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. Well,
Mhm.
Greg Colleton with Your Art Inc. Thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's
Thank you.
Mosaics.
Yeah, thank you so much. And sorry I'm in the basement with all this clutter.
I can barely see it from my screen.
Yeah, it's the only quiet spot right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I
It was a
completely understand.
pleasure.
Likewise,
Yeah.
likewise. Thank you.